Hi everyone, it's Anthony and Rachel.
Hi.
From Don't Crop Me Now. This is our late spring update. It's the 18th of May. It's pretty much 4 months since the late winter update. It's 20 degrees. We haven't had rain since April the 16th in Manchester. So let's have a little look around our plots in Granville Park allotments and we'll see how we're getting on.
So let's start on plot 4. Now if the audio is a little bit sketchy, please bear with us. We've lost our mic, it's somewhere in the house, so we need to find that. Plot 4, it's been so dry. We've had very little time last few weeks to do really any weeding on our own plots because we've been so tied down with committee stuff on the allotment, the community plot and various other things. So there's definitely a few weeds around. It hasn't really been weeded, I'd say, for at least 2 weeks. But it is quite an established plot, so there's not too many weeds, but we've definitely got some popping up. Let's start here and you can just see how dry it is. Our herb beds are looking pretty sorry for themselves, but I'm sure it's pretty hard to kill off some of these woody herbs, so I'm sure they will pick up. The pond that we've been absolutely having to refill regularly because it has just completely been evaporated in the sun. Now the apple is doing okay, it's set quite a bit of fruit, and I have remembered to put the codling moth traps up this year, so fingers crossed we will get a harvest there. The strawberry bed is actually loving the sun. It's been seriously hot here for this time of year, and we have got a few strawberries that are starting to ripen. I bought quite a few herbs from the Urban Herbs company, and this is not paid promotion, but I'm really impressed with this cola herb. It smells absolutely brilliant. I'm looking forward to putting that in a few cocktails. It's also caused quite a bit of a stir with our fellow allotmenteers who have been quite interested in something that's a little bit unusual. The dahlias are just starting to appear, and I have to say they're very happy without too many slugs because of the dry weather. The rhubarb, again, not doing amazing because it really needs watering, and we don't have time to water our allotment, all the beds on our allotment really regularly. We tend to just focus on the stuff that is undercover, but there is a crop there. Right behind me, you should see on the raspberry supports, there are 2 clematis plants that look like they're actually doing really well this year. So hopefully they can grow over the arch and look really pretty. We did actually choose to replace all the raspberry plants last autumn because they were just getting, they've been in about 15 years, they weren't really fruiting that well. So I'm not sure we're going to get an amazing crop this year, but hopefully we will over the next few years from those new plants. These 2 metal beds are new for the season, and this is definitely an area of the allotment that is pretty weedy. I'm sure you can see lots of weeds on the path. I'm going to put more dahlias in here that we've started off. They're currently in the Polytunnel, so hopefully that will look quite pretty as well. The kiwi plant I actually put in last year that just sort of sat there and didn't do much, is starting to grow quite well in this heat. The plan is that that's going to grow up over this arch. I do believe they are really big and vigorous plants. This is a variety called Kiwi Jenny, which is meant to be grown in northern climates. I don't know whether it will fruit. Some people do say that they do get fruit in North England, so let's see. If anything, hopefully it will just look nice over this arch structure. This area of the allotment is looking a little bit tidier. We are really late with our planting, mainly because it's been so hot, so I've been putting off sowing a lot of the stuff direct from seed because it will have absolutely no chance, and just again because we've been so busy. But we have got the onions out. They're not looking too bad. It is quite dry, so we have been watering them a little bit. Onions really like to be kept moist or they tend to go to seed. These ones were grown from seed rather than sets, and that does help a little bit with the going to seed, which is called bolting. But in this kind of weather, who knows really, we might not get a brilliant crop. The potatoes are now completely in. I did buy a new watering system for the potatoes, which I haven't quite managed to set up because when I bought it I didn't realise that it had the American connector things on it, so none of the standard like hose lock type ones we use in the UK will fit. So we put it in on the potato plants and we're going to connect that up. That is a like a drip sort of system, so let's see if that makes it a little bit more helpful towards the potato plants. When we do get rain here in Manchester, we tend to get a lot of rain, and what we don't want to do is to have those potatoes with extra water when we're watering them all over the leaves, because it really increases the chance of blight. So I'm hoping having the hose underneath is going to mean that we water the base of the plants rather than the leaves. But let's watch this space. After saying I was not going to let the parsnips go to seed again this year, they sort of have gone to seed because I didn't get the remaining ones out quickly enough. They are absolutely brilliant for pollinators though. I mean, the main reason I was saying I didn't want it to go to seed again is because they drop seed absolutely everywhere. They're very small, tiny seeds which get blown around in the wind. So it's like having the world's worst weed because they self-seed everywhere. But they are really pretty plants, great for pollinators. So I am going to leave these plants in, allow them to flower, and then I'm going to cut all the flowers off before they start to set seed. These 4 smaller raised beds, I think I'm going to predominantly use for flowers for cutting. I did actually take a few plants out of the flower bed last year and I put them in this little raised bed, mainly just to overwinter, and the idea was I was going to plant them somewhere else. But they actually look quite happy here, so I think I'm going to leave them in that bed, certainly for this year, and the rest will be the cutting flowers. The flower border we did actually redo at the end of last year. We made it smaller, it's just over about 3 foot. So let's see how this pairs out. There's a lot of plants that are coming through behind that, which is a bit of a pain, but it was just a little bit too much for us to keep on top of the weeding, having a very large flower border. It's pretty full, there's a few weeds in there, but it's pretty full of plants, so hopefully it will look nice in the summer.
So just looking down one of the main paths, we can see how dry it's been. I do a lot of the mowing of the main paths around the ground. It takes about 2 hours to do usually, and just by looking at this path you can see how dry it's been. Grass is pretty parched, pretty dry, and I haven't actually needed to mow it this week because it hasn't even grown.
Now let's have a look at 2B. Now the polytunnel is pretty full. There's a lot of stuff that is growing on there. Other than that, the orchard is looking nice as well. Again, I managed to put those codling moth and the plum moth traps up. We have tidied quite a bit in the fruit cage, so overall that's not looking too bad. We do need to fix the roof on the fruit cage. I've just sort of tied it up at the moment. That whole thing needs to come out because it got ripped by some of the cultivated brambles that grew straight out the top. We still haven't got around to doing that. Sort of mixed in between the trees on the orchard area. We've got loads of pots with these maybe quite strange looking trees in. They are actually root stocks for plum trees, which we were given by another plot holder. There's probably about 20 of them. So I'm just now trying to desperately keep them alive because any sort of tree really does not like being in a pot. But there's actually about 3 in each of these pots, and we will use these for grafting projects later in the year. Talking about grafting, we did try and graft onto this pear tree. I didn't think it'd been successful because we did it way too late last year, but looking, actually it has taken and it started to grow. I think we'll need to cut this one out, and this is the grafted one, to allow that to grow, but that actually was a success. Let's have a look at some further grafting projects. Now this was a tiny little apple tree that we had got off actually when we had the front part of plot 2, and it'd been stuck in a container for quite a while. The apples on it were not very nice. It was some sort of cooking variety, but not very tasty ones. So we decided to completely cut this down and graft onto this, and we've grafted on with discovery apples from another apple tree on the ground, which has the most tasty, lovely apples. Now one of them, this one, has fallen off, so I don't think I quite got that secured with the graft, but the rest of these do look quite sturdy, so fingers crossed they will survive and start growing. Let's see over the next month or so. Now the regular followers might remember that we had a huge, and I mean huge, fig tree on this part of the plot, and we made the decision to get this out. Anthony had a good go at getting it out, and the root was just impossible. We had to bring a tree surgeon in to grind the root out. Now the reason that we did that was because it grown so big. The fruit trees have to be kept under 10 foot on our ground as part of the rules of our lease, and in all honesty it was impossible to keep it fruiting at under 10 foot. So I decided to just, cut our losses and get rid of it. And this was actually a cutting that we took a number of years ago that's been in this pot from the original tree, and it does have little fruitlets on. So we're leaving this one in the pot, so it might be a little bit easier to confine, and hopefully we'll get a smaller, nicer and more manageable fig tree in this section of the orchard. on our ground we have a saying which is net it or forget it, and I think that's pretty true. Pigeons, wood pigeons, they absolutely annihilate quite a lot of crops on our ground, and I've just given up growing peas in particular on the main part of the plot because they just strip them and it's such a faff. But this year I've decided to put a few pea plants just in the corner of the fruit cage just to see if we do actually get any. Who knows? If they don't, I'm just going to give in on peas because the pigeons get much more than we ever do. The other thing that the wood pigeons really like to attack is the young new growth of plum trees. So we've got a small plum tree that's within the fruit cage that we have to prune to try and keep within the size of it, and that's quite tricky to do. We did have another plum tree that was within this fruit cage as well. We had to take that one out because we couldn't keep it small enough. Let's have a look at those fruits though. There you go, lots of plums that are set. Inside the fruit cage we have a lot of quite large established blueberry bushes, which I know is probably one of our most popular videos on our YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the comments for that. They're doing really well, but I have to say they are a moist ground crop, and last year what happened is if you don't manage to water them enough, you tend to get like really small, like pinprick size blueberries. So we will need to keep watering these in pots if we're going to get a good crop. So let's watch this space, but they've set a lot of fruit. A winter change that we made was to put this support structure in and try and train this cultivated blackberry bramble along here, because that's what was escaping out of the roof and really causing us problems. But I think it's been a bit dry for it. I think it needs watering better, but parts of it are setting flowers really quite nicely. However, we will need to start tying in some of the new growth that you can see coming up in the corner, because it's surprising how early in the year that comes through. If you don't tie it in before it's through the roof, then you've already lost the process anyway. We're inside the Polytunnel. This is doing really well this year for starting off plants. As you can see in the background, I've got quite a lot of hanging baskets. A few of these are for plot, but the majority of these are for home. We did manage to start them off quite early this year, so they're looking really good. The rest of the plants in here are predominantly flowers really that we put around different beds and within a bit of companion planting as well. We do actually have lots of apricots that are set on this tree this year, so fingers crossed we will manage to get some fruit, and the grapevine is most certainly growing. The other thing that we will plant in here is probably the cucumber plants, which will go in the bed that is just behind me. We mentioned those dahlia beds that were the new ones that are going to be on plot 4. Now we have started most of the dahlias in the Polytunnel and they are doing really well. We have bought some chili grow planters, which are like the quad grow planters that we use already for the chilies, but they're slightly smaller. I'm going to try these just to see how they do with the smaller chili plants like Apache. We're going to keep these in the Polytunnel, I think, on these benches. Some of these are actually for the community plot, so they're not all ours. We've just got 2 sets, but that's new for us. Again, that's not paid promotion, but the quad grows have been absolutely brilliant for us, so I'm really hopeful these are going to be good too. We're over to plot 5B. This is where our main greenhouse is, and you can see most things are still in the greenhouse. We haven't managed to plant out. In all honesty, every year I think I plant out mid-May. I don't. It's still mid-June. We're still planting out because we're always behind. But we've still got lots of things in here, and it is tricky at this time of year. It's currently 28 degrees in this greenhouse, and it's tricky to keep on top of large plants, so they're having to be watered really regularly. We've still got the majority of brassicas in here, chilies, which will go within here in the quad grows. Lots of tomatoes. I'm going to put, I think, 8 tomatoes in here. We don't usually grow tomatoes at the allotment. We've got a big greenhouse at home, we put tomatoes in, but because we've got so many chilies, I'm going to cut down the amount of chilies. We're going to grow some tomatoes as well. We've also got squash, all sorts of things that still need to go out on the plots. Finally, the main part of 5B, the grafted trees are looking good on here. They've definitely got some fruit setting for this year. We've also got a really nice flower bed, which we also put some sweet peas on some wigwams in. That's looking nice. The garlic on here is actually doing pretty well, but other than that, we're really mainly on empty beds that need all the stuff coming out of the greenhouse over the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks. When I said there's not much else planting here, obviously my memory is not very good. We do have broad beans in, parsley and coriander, and some of the bean plants, the climbing beans. We're only growing these few wigwams, just one bed of climbing beans this year, because a bit like the chilies, we have got cupboards full at home of dried beans, and we probably better to prioritise the space elsewhere. So I hope you have all enjoyed the video today and that your allotments are coming on okay and not suffering too much in the drought, which I believe is really all over the UK at the moment. If you have liked the video, please like, comment and subscribe. It only takes a minute, but it really helps our channel. Take care everyone. Bye.
Bye.